Hello my art friends. Today I'm going to do a fun little project on a mixed media project, which is what I really love to do. I teach classes in my art room in my home, and some really nice ladies that come over and we do art together. And I kind of just show them all the things I've learned and help them to I hope to feel more confident about their skills and abilities, and realize that it's a process and it's somewhat just about what you love. It doesn't matter if anyone else loves it. If you enjoyed it and you like your finished piece and maybe learn something, or I don't know, that's really a valuable thing. And it's very nice. It's almost like probably the old knitting circles or quilting or things ladies used to do. It's sort of an outlet to get us to have a good group of people to meet up with. So I hope you enjoy this video. Trust was my word for 2019, and this was the project we made for that. Everybody had a different word, of course, and they did it a little different. We made these with a jelly print, jelly plate, I should say, and we just glued it on a piece of cardstock. So this year, my word is forgive, and I need to work on that a little more. So this is my basic project, what it's going to kind of look like. So I'm just going to pull this all off and get started. My substrate is cement board that we use on our houses, you know, for siding. I really like making art on it. It's durable. You could cut it to any size you want. Well, you can I've only seen it 8 inches wide, but you can cut it as long as you want. And you can drill holes in it if you want to put wire through it, which I do a lot of times. It takes paint grade. It takes everything really well. And I love the little texture that's already in it, like a piece of wood would have. So I love it, and it all started because we were going to throw some out to the dump, and I got this wild idea. Oh, I wonder if I could paint art, you know, acrylic paint on it. And then, of course, I said to myself, well, of course you could paint on it. It's house board. We paint it. So that's how this all started, basically. And I love to use an old credit card or gift card to lay my elements down, because you can get a pretty thin layer of decoupage that way. And I think that's a really good thing, because it will, especially when we're doing a class. Of course you can use a heat gun, but if you've done much decoupaging, you know, even though it's dry to the touch, it's still wet underneath for quite a while. Typically you want to expect it to be wet for 24 hours, really. So in order to get a class done where we usually use Sharpies quite a bit on top of our art that I teach, and so you need to have it a certain amount dry, or it will not, it'll ruin your pens, as I'm sure you all know. Or if you don't, trust me on that, because it will ruin it. I don't care how good your pens are or how not good they are, it will ruin them, and you just don't want that. So this is a lot of stuff I had laying around. This piece I'm just putting down right now is a Tim Holtz piece, and I just got a couple of Jane Davenport, let's see, what are they called? she? Well, they're called Ultimate Pens, and they, when they dry, they're permanent, which is really nice. And I pretty much love everything she has. And Tim Holtz, so yeah, I'm just an art groupie, I guess. So see how I just ripped this piece of paper there? You do want to be a little careful. This is tissue paper, Tim Holtz tissue paper. I believe it's his new line for 2020, but you know, I'm not positive about that because it doesn't really say. I do think I watched a video, I think it is one of his new pieces. And then this is just book page. And this and my heart and the wings I'm going to put on here are all Sean Petit. If you haven't watched her, she's just not only what I think to be an incredible person, but also incredible artist. And so I love watching her art. And these little butterflies are hers too. She sells collage packets, which I love. I use them for all kinds of things. I don't always make exactly the same thing she made, but although I usually do, and then I use them for lots of things because I just love her things. And you know, you can change them up some and just play with them. But these I just had left over from something else, and she calls it Crash the Stash, so I think that's a really clever thing too. She's just great. You should go watch her if you haven't. Sean Petit. So I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Always close your decoupage container when you're done, because it'll really be a mess if you don't. I always try to, if I use some element, I try to, like book page, for instance, I'll try to have it in odd numbers of places, because well, I learned that a long time ago, and it works with flower arranging or anything, and I do think it's valuable. Your eye moves around nicely when you have that odd number. So if you use something once, that's one thing, and if you use it twice, maybe you want to consider using it 3 times. For anybody who doesn't know much about decoupage, your most important thing when you're laying it down is to get the middle, because you can always get back to the edges, but you can't get back to that middle area. And I don't know if it'll show up on this really, but this has a lot of texture under it because, like I said, this, if you've seen siding, cement board siding, you know that it looks like a piece of wood. So as this dries, I can manipulate it a little more, get, you know, rub it in a little more. If you're not careful, you'll rip your paper, and I don't want to rip my heart. But I don't know if you can see, like right there, it's kind of going down into the lines of the wood. So eventually this will have sort of a wood texture to it, I think, once it dries. So the next thing I'm going to do, oh, do you love my lovely tablecloth, by the way? Sorry, I'm looking for something better to use. If any of you have suggestions, I'd love to know. I have a beautiful table under here my husband made out of an old door. It has glass on the top. So it's lovely, but I don't want to work directly on top of that, especially when we're doing classes and things like that. I'm sorry, I need to get a block to be able to use my stamp. Just 1 minute, I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my stamp block. I forgot I wanted to add a little bit of really watered down, I call this my crazy blue paint, because it's a beautiful color, but it's I mean, this is just what's left in my brush from something, and this brush has been sitting there for days in the water, so it just has a very faint. I'm going to do this little thing I like to do where you pounce it on there and you let it dry, and you get this real pooly watercolor looking effect, and I love it. And of course, I don't know, turquoise and red is pretty good together, I think. So that's kind of what I'm going with there today. We'll see what we come up with this. You never know quite how it's going to turn out. Okay, so back to this. This is a close to my heart stamp, doodle alphabet. I think it's very cute. This is what it looks like. I'm not sure how well that'll show up, but so I'm going to do my word that way, using this, I should say. The stamp block's really nice because it has a little line on it to line things up. So that's really nice. This is awfully small, but I think it'll be okay. If I can just find the right little letters. Another thing that's always a little bit, of course I feel under pressure at the moment doing this, so let's see here. There it is. Well, I had a little technicality happen here. My phone, I'm not sure, it either ran out of battery or it ran out of space. So what you didn't see is I stamped on tissue paper. I'm not sure how well this will show up, but hopefully you can see it. So I stamped the words and the 2020 on tissue paper, and then I decoupaged it onto my board, and I talked a bit about decoupaging, so it's no big deal. You know, I'll be doing some more, and whatever you didn't see, it's okay, because I'm sure I'll say the same things over and over a few times. So back to this piece. So my word, as I said, for 2020 is forgive. Just in case, I think it's in there, but this is Tim Holtz paper. These components are Sean Petite. This is a close to my heart stamp. This is just some book page. And these are the two the Jane Davenport Ultimate pens that I got. This one is a gold, which you can see right here, and they dry permanent. And this is the turquoise. Let's see, what's it actually called? It's called, okay, I don't know what, that sounds like it's in French or something. It's aqua or something like that, turquoise aqua. This is what it looks like. I don't know what else to say. I don't know what that language is. So anyway, it's very cute. It's got these little scales on it. It's got this this little brush tip thing. And that's what I used to write this with. And oh, I was thinking maybe I would do this with it a little bit. Maybe not everywhere, just a little bit. Just for fun. Give it a little more color, I guess. Sometimes I have things very planned out. Other times I just sort of go with it. I think you can rub this a little bit too. Yeah, it looks like you can rub it a little bit. Well, that's fun too. Till it dries probably, and then you probably can't move it. Yeah. So, oh, I think I'll maybe put a little bit in there. Maybe not solid, but just a little here and there. So that's cool how that moves around a little bit until it dries. Get a little bit of movement out of it. Yeah, that looks pretty. Let's try the gold a little bit. So I have some here, as I said. Maybe we'll add a tiny bit on the butterfly here just for sparkle. It's really cool. It has a very fine tip on the end, but if you push on it, of course, it goes out to more like a brush. Let's see here. Oh, what about in here? We'll do some. So see how that does that brush type tip thing. I haven't got very many things that have that type of double tip, I guess I'd say. So that's kind of fun. I'll just add a little bit in here and there. Let's see if that spreads around. Oh yeah, it does also a little bit until it dries. So that's kind of fun. Well, so you know how I was saying we do, in my classes, we do a lot of Sharpie work afterwards. So I like a fine and an ultra fine black Sharpie. I really am not very good at shading and highlighting. I know a little bit and I'm learning, but it's definitely not my best thing. And honestly, I kind of like this look most of the time. When I don't want it to be quite as sharp, I'll use usually watered down, sort of black to grayish paint. And that way I'll go along the edge and I'll take my finger and rub it and make sort of a not solid line so much looking thing as this. I also like a really sketchy kind of thing. I'm not into perfection, and I prefer, I guess is what I would say, to have a sort of a sketchy thing going on a lot of times. I don't know if you know this, once in a while you can get Sharpie to move a little bit. It's a real short period, but see how that moved a little? So that's just something you can do too. And you kind of have to have decoupage down on it to make that work though. So one thing fun with this heart is it's already got some black on it, so that kind of lends to, you know, adding some more maybe, if, you know, to give it as not a perfective look or to just change the look of it. And it's got these, it sort of looks like it was on barnwood type thing. So it's got these two little gaps like wood would have if it dried, you know, it kind of pulls apart. So I kind of think that's cute. I'm gonna try something. I think I'll use, I don't know, if I don't like this I can always go over it, but I'm just gonna kind of, since this is a love-ish theme, which is how I feel about God. Of course, XO isn't quite what I would go to for that, but anyway, it's just kind of something. Well, I don't actually like that very well, so I think I'll go back to this and I'll just gonna kind of cover that up a little bit, real sketchy, like almost like I had black paint, which a lot of times I will use paint, but since I've got the Sharpie here, I think I'll play with that and just kind of, I like this little white thing right here too, like it almost looks like it tore or something on the paper or something, I don't know. So when you're doing things, with Sharpie or whatever it would paint or whatever, you don't want exactly rectangly, or you want kind of imperfect looking things a lot of times. Sometimes you do want it to be kind of perfect looking, but a lot of times not. So you got to keep that in mind a little bit so that you don't end up with a real, I don't know. I like more imperfect things. So this stamp has a cute little, not sure you can actually see it, but it has like two lines here, like it was made to fill in, a little bit like the really popular way of writing right now, where you do use those brush pens. So I think I'm gonna fill this in just so that it shows up a little, maybe a little better than, that pen might be dead. I'll use this one. Might have to go get another one of those. But I don't know, I just want this to be a little bit more dark and things. So I really like to change the dot on like an eye to a little heart. I'm kind of into hearts and wings, and I don't know, I do like all that stuff. But the problem is I like everything, like all the styles of art. I do love mixed media though, because it's just right for me. It's not perfection, and I can usually do it and be very happy with my outcome. And if not, that's another wonderful thing. Instead of having to buy a canvas, just using these house boards, house siding, it's not a really very big deal if you decide that you really don't like it. I mean, you could just throw it out. I call it, it's not precious art. If you get sick of it in a year, you can get rid of it without having spent, you know, a fortune or anything like that. So I like that part of this type of art too, that it's not so, you just don't have to worry about it, you know. If it got ruined, it got ruined. It's not a big deal. And you could just start over again too. I'm just trying to give this a little bit of some definition that I don't feel it has, even though I really like it. I probably kind of wish I would have slid it back and off this corner a little bit, but I didn't. Too late now. If I had another one, I might cut it off and actually put it on top of this a little and kind of make a second one, but I don't have one right now, so I'm just kind of do this funny little thing I do, and just make some marks. And you can do that all kinds of ways. You can use stencils or just lots of different things. Another thing that I feel this really needs is this word love I wrote out. It's a little, I feel like it needs a little definition, but I need to get a thinner pen. So I'm sorry, just 1 second, I'll be right back. Since I'm done with my decoupaging, I think I'll try this pen, which is also a Sharpie pen, but these are not exactly permanent. If you were to put, say, paint over it, like watercolor-ish paint or decoupage or something, it would bleed. So these write very nicely. Let's see if I can get it to write on here. I don't know. This is pretty bumpy. Let's see what happens. A lot of my pens are kind of worn out. I guess I need to get some new ones. Well, it's helping to give it a little bit of definition. My piece is definitely dry, so that is not the issue, which I don't know if it showed up or if it cut off before I said that decoupage will definitely ruin your pens if it's still wet, or, you know, or paint or matte medium, any of that. It just eats your pens. So be really careful with your pens, especially if you've paid a lot for them. Many of them are very expensive. So, I mean, I didn't do too much to this. It's just a little bit of highlight, I guess I would say. Even though it's dark, it helps it pop out a little bit. Well, I like that pretty well. The other thing I like to use is white Sharpies. These have a little ball in them. And this one is a fine point. And let's see, this one is a medium. So let's see here. I don't feel like my tissue paper here It still shows through a little bit. And I really don't have any white in here. And a general rule is to always have some black and white. That just mostly means to give you contrasts and lights and darks for things. So I really like these pens. When you first get them, you have to depress this until you get a puddle. But I've used it a lot, so I don't have to. And then when you're doing it, once in a while you need to do that. And if you do need to do that, do it on a separate piece of paper, because once in a while these will flood way out, which could be okay. Let's see if I can show you what that would look like. Let's just go right here, and I'm just pressing it down. And you start to see the ink start flowing. All of a sudden it'll probably get a, see how it's getting a puddle there? Well, it's not too bad, but once in a while it'll really go crazy and it'll just puddle out. But you could always take a little thing and piece of paper or your finger and, you know, just move it around a little bit, and it just becomes a part of the texture, which is fine, because that's kind of what I'm going to do with it anyway. I'm just going to add in maybe some, you can use it for sort of some dots, or on this tissue paper area, I'm kind of into this really sketchy line type thing that you do a lot of times when you put a word on something. And I kind of like a really exaggerated one, and oh, maybe I'll put a few dots in here a little bit, or around here a little bit. I don't know. So like I said, same thing. You can kind of do whatever you want to do with this, and it's just fun to play with it. Well, thank you. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know, and let me know if there's something you want me to try to work on and show you. And if I can do it, I'll show you. So thanks a lot. Appreciate you watching. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, share. Help me to grow my channel. I really would appreciate it. Thanks so much. Bye.